When there is real danger, time disappears, doesn't it? There is immediate action. But we do not see the danger of many of our problems, and therefore we invent time as a means of overcoming them. Time is a deceiver as it doesn't do a thing to help us bring about a change in ourselves. Time is a movement which man has divided into past, present and future, and as long as he divides it, he will always be in conflict. The first thing, if I may suggest it, is that you completely stop inwardly. And when you do stop inwardly, psychologically, your mind becomes very peaceful, very clear. Then you can really look at this question of time. When we meet a challenge partially, fragmentarily, or try to escape from it, that is, when we meet it without complete attention, we bring about a problem, and the problem continues so long as we continue to give it incomplete attention. There is the idea, the interval, and action, and in that interval is the whole field of time. That interval is essentially thought. When you think you will be happy tomorrow, then you have an image of yourself achieving a certain result in time. Thought, through observation, through desire, and the continuity of that desire, sustained by further thought, says, "Tomorrow I shall be happy." So thought creates that interval which is time. You are looking back, wishing, hoping, regretting. So thought, going over it again and again, breeds this thing we call sorrow, and gives continuity to time, and continuity of fear. If you say, "Will it ever end?" then it is already an idea, something you want to achieve, and therefore you have an interval, and you are caught again. Time is the interval between the observer and the observed. Is there something permanent, continuous, which is beyond thought? If thought can think about it, it is within the field of thought, and therefore it cannot be permanent, because there is nothing permanent within the field of thought. To discover that nothing is permanent is of tremendous importance, for only then is the mind free. Then you can look, and in that there is great joy. We would rather cling to the known than face the unknown. The known being our house, our furniture, family, our character, our work, knowledge, fame, loneliness, our gods. We have accepted life as it is with all its agony and despair, and we have got used to it, and think of death as something to be carefully avoided. But death is extraordinary, like life, when you know how to live. You cannot live without dying. You cannot live if you do not die psychologically every minute. This is not an intellectual paradox. To live completely, wholly, every day, as if it were a new loveliness, there must be dying to everything of yesterday. Otherwise you live mechanically. A mechanical mind can never know what love is or what freedom is. As long as we are frightened of life, we shall be frightened of death. The man who is not frightened of life is not frightened of being completely insecure, for he understands that inwardly, psychologically, there is no security. When there is no security, there is an endless movement, and then life and death are the same. If you die to everything you know, including your family, your memory, everything you have felt, then death is a purification, a rejuvenating process. Then death brings innocence, and it is only the innocent who are passionate, not the people who believe or who want to find out what happens after death. If you have died to one of your pleasures, the smallest or the greatest, naturally, without any enforcement or argument, then you will know what it means to die. To die is to have a mind that is completely empty of itself, empty of its daily longings, pleasures and agonies. Death is a renewal, a mutation, in which thought does not function at all because thought is old. When there is death, there is something totally new. Freedom from the known is death, and then you are living. Now, how am I to find out what this flame is which we call love? I will first reject what the church, what society, what my parents and friends, what every person and every book has said about it, because I want to find out for myself what it is. First, clear up your own confusion. Perhaps you may be able to discover what love is through what it is not. What sex gives you momentarily is the total abandonment of yourself. Then you are back again with your turmoil. As long as I can rely on you to satisfy my demands, sexual or otherwise, I love you. But the moment you cease to supply what I want, I don't like you. So there is antagonism between you. There is separation, and when you feel separation from another, there is no love. But if you can live with your wife without thought creating all these contradictory states, these endless quarrels in yourself, then perhaps you will know what love is. Then you are completely free, and so is she. Whereas if you depend on her for all your pleasure, you are a slave to her. So when one loves, there must be freedom, not only from the other person, but from oneself. Love is not the product of thought, which is the past. Thought cannot possibly cultivate love. Love is always in the present. When you totally abandon yourself to that love, there is not the other. Really to care is to care as you would for a tree or a plant, watering it, studying its needs, the best soil for it, looking after it with gentleness and tenderness. But when you prepare your children to fit into society, you are preparing them to be killed. If you loved your children, you would have no war. You can see in a moment the whole structure and nature of this shoddy little thing called me, my tears, my family, my nation, my belief, my religion. All that ugliness, it is all inside you. When you see it with your heart, not with your mind, when you see it from the very bottom of your heart, then you have the key that will end sorrow. Fear is not love. Dependence is not love. Jealousy is not love. Possessiveness and domination are not love. Responsibility and duty are not love. Self-pity is not love. The agony of not being loved is not love. Love is not the opposite of hate any more than humility is the opposite of vanity. So, if you can eliminate all these, not by forcing them, but by washing them away as the rain washes the dust of many days from a leaf, then perhaps you will come upon this strange flower which man always hungers after. If you have not got love, not just in little drops but in abundance, if you are not filled with it, the world will go to disaster. When you exercise discipline and will to love, love goes out the window. By practicing some method or system of loving, you may become extraordinarily clever, or more kindly, or get into a state of non-violence, but that has nothing whatsoever to do with love. There is beauty only when your heart and mind know what love is. Without love and that sense of beauty, there is no virtue, and you know very well that, do what you will, improve society, feed the poor, you will only be creating more mischief, for without love there is only ugliness and poverty in your own heart and mind. But when there is love and beauty, whatever you do is right, whatever you do is in order. If you know how to love, then you can do what you like, because it will solve all other problems. One thing is absolutely necessary, and that is passion without motive. A man who does not know what passion is will never know love, because love can come into being only when there is total self-abandonment. A mind that is seeking is not a passionate mind, and to come upon love without seeking it, is the only way to find it. To come upon it unknowingly, and not as a result of any effort or experience. Such a love, you will find, is not of time. Such a love is both personal and impersonal, is both the one and the many. Like a flower that has perfume, you can smell it, or pass it by. Love is something that is new, fresh, alive. It has no yesterday and no tomorrow. It is beyond the turmoil of thought. It is only the innocent mind which knows what love is. This is only possible when thought comes to understand itself, and comes naturally to an end. If you don't know what to do, you do nothing, don't you? Absolutely nothing. Then inwardly you are completely silent. You are not seeking, not wanting, not pursuing. There is no centre at all. Then there is love. Try it and see what actually takes place when you observe the tree with all your being, with the totality of your energy. When you are looking at something with complete attention, there is no space for a conception, a formula, or a memory. It is only a mind that looks at a tree, or the stars, or the sparkling waters of a river, with complete self-abandonment, that knows what beauty is. And when we are actually seeing, we are in a state of love. There can be self-abandonment only when there is total austerity, the austerity of being totally simple, which is complete humility. Then there is no achieving, no ladder to climb. There is only the first step, and the first step is the everlasting step. All our relationships are really imaginary, that is, based on an image formed by thought. If I have an image about you, and you have an image about me, Naturally, we don't see each other at all as we actually are. What we see is the images we have formed about each other, which prevents us from being in contact, and that is why our relationships go wrong. When I say I know you, I mean I knew you yesterday. I do not know you actually now. All I know is my image of you. That image is put together by what you have said in praise of me or to insult me, what you have done to me. It is put together by all the memories I have of you, and your image of me is put together in the same way, and it is those images which have relationship, and which prevent us from real communing with each other. Therefore, it is important to understand, not intellectually but actually in your daily life, how you have built images about your wife, your husband, neighbour, child, country, your leaders, your politicians, gods. These images create the space between you and what you observe, and in that space there is conflict. When you give your complete attention, I mean everything in you, there is no observer at all. There is only the state of attention, which is total energy, and that total energy is the highest form of intelligence. That total silence, in which there is neither the observer nor the thing observed, is the highest form of a religious mind. But what takes place in that state cannot be put into words, because what is said in words is not the fact. To find out for yourself, you have to go through it. Every problem is related to every other problem, so that if you can solve one problem completely, it does not matter what it is, you will see that you are able to meet all other problems easily and resolve them. We are talking, of course, of psychological problems. We have already seen that a problem exists only in time, that is, when we meet the issue incompletely. So, not only must we be aware of the nature and structure of the problem and see it completely, but meet it as it arises and resolve it immediately, so that it does not take root in the mind. If one allows a problem to endure for a month, or a day, or even for minutes, it distorts the mind. These memories are the images we carry about with us, and it is these images which met this extraordinary thing called life, and therefore there is a contradiction, and hence conflict. Life is very real. Life is not an abstraction, and when you meet it with images, there are problems. So long as there is a centre creating space around itself, there is neither love nor beauty. When there is no centre and no circumference, then there is love. The centre creates the space between person and person, and that is why our lives are so empty and callous. If you are all the time aware of what you are doing, you can cultivate awareness, and out of that awareness you will begin to see the nature of pleasure, desire, and sorrow, and the utter loneliness and boredom of man. And then you will begin to come upon that thing called the space. It is from that centre that I observe and make my judgment, and thus the observer is separate from the thing he observes. But the observer is aware of more than one image. He creates thousands of images, always adding to and subtracting from what he is. He is a living thing, all the time weighing, comparing, judging, modifying, and changing, as a result of the pressures from inside, outside, and within. When you look at the observer, who is yourself, you see that he is made up of memories, experiences, accidents, influences, traditions, and infinite varieties of suffering, all of which are the past. He is half alive and half dead, and with this death and life he is looking. In that state of mind, which is within the field of time, you, the observer, look at fear, jealousy, war, at the family, and try to solve the problem of the thing observed, which is the challenge, the new. You are always translating the new in terms of the old, and therefore you are everlastingly in conflict. One image, as the observer, observes dozens of other images around himself and inside himself, and he says, I like this image, I'm going to keep it, or I don't like that image, so I'll get rid of it. But the observer himself has been put together by the various images which have come into being through reaction to various other images. So we come to a point where we can say, the observer is also the image, only he has separated himself and observes. This observer, who has come into being through various other images, thinks himself permanent, and between himself and the images he has created there is a division, a time interval. This creates conflict between himself and the images he believes to be the cause of his troubles. So then he says, I must get rid of this conflict, but the very desire to get rid of the conflict creates another image. Awareness of all this, which is real meditation, has revealed that there is a central image put together by all the other images, And this central image, the observer, is the censor, the experiencer, the evaluator, the judge who wants to conquer or subjugate the other images or destroys them altogether. The other images are the result of judgments, opinions, and conclusions by the observer, and the observer is the result of all the other images. Therefore, the observer is the observed. It is not a superior entity who becomes aware of this. It is the awareness itself which had revealed that the observer is the observed. If in that state of awareness there is still an entity who says, "I must be aware, I must practice awareness," that again is another image. This awareness that the observer is the observed is not a process of identification with the observed. When the observer realizes that the thing about which he is acting is himself, then there is no conflict between himself and the image. He is that. If something is you, what can you do? You cannot rebel against it, or run away from it, or even accept it. It is there. So all action that is the outcome of reaction to like and dislike has come to an end. Then you will find that there is an awareness that has become tremendously alive. It is not bound to any central issue, or to any image, and from that intensity of awareness there is a different quality of attention, and therefore the mind, because the mind is this awareness, has become extraordinarily sensitive and highly intelligent. We are afraid of living, and therefore the past as ideas has become so important to us. It is really extraordinarily interesting to watch the operation of one's own thinking, just to observe how one thinks, where the action we call thinking springs from. Obviously, from memory. The experiencer, who is the thinker, is the pleasure and the pain, and also the entity, who gives nourishment to the pleasure and pain.